The story of Michael Jackson is often told in superlatives. The greatest entertainer, the king of pop, a global icon whose music transcended borders, languages, and cultures. His legacy is etched in record sales, groundbreaking music videos, and dance moves that defied physics and imagination. Yet, behind the sequined glove and the mesmerizing moonwalk, there was a man haunted by a childhood he never had. To understand Michael Jackson, his drive, his vulnerabilities, his tragic end, one must return to Gary, Indiana, and to the shadow of his father, Joe Jackson. This is not just a story of fame and fortune, it is the story of how abuse can shape genius, fracture identity, and create tragedy. The Jackson household was outwardly a striving working-class family. Joe, a former boxer and failed musician, worked long hours at Inland Steel. Catherine, his devout wife, raised their children. But within the walls, Joe ruled with fear. He was not affectionate, only strict, cold, and often terrifying. When Joe realized his sons had musical gifts, he turned them from children into assets. Rehearsals replaced play. Instead of games, the brothers endured 5-hour practice sessions. Mistakes meant punishment, belts, cords, or branches cut from the yard. Joe claimed he was protecting them from Gary's dangerous streets, but his methods left scars. For Michael, the youngest and most gifted, the abuse was especially cruel. Joe mocked him as Big Nose, planting an insecurity that followed him into adulthood. Michael developed a nervous tic, always touching his face. These wounds later showed in his plastic surgeries, attempts to erase what he was taught to hate. The Jackson 5 rose through talent shows and small clubs until Motown Records signed them in 1968. Diana Ross presented them as a discovery, and the world fell into Jackson mania. Hits like I Want You Back, ABC, and I'll Be There made them global stars. For fans, they were a dream family. For Michael, it was exhausting labor under his father's control. On stage, he was adored by thousands. Off stage, he was a lonely boy, crying in isolation. The paradox defined his life, the idol in the spotlight and the frightened child in the shadows. The love of crowds became a substitute for paternal love, a substitute that never healed the wound. As he grew older, Michael sought freedom. His solo albums with Quincy Jones, Off the Wall and Thriller, proved his genius. Thriller made him the most famous person alive. With that fame, he distanced himself from Joe, but the scars remained. He built Neverland Ranch, a fantasy kingdom with rides, animals, and theaters, trying to reclaim a lost childhood. Yet Joe's shadow never left him. Even in his 40s, Michael said the thought of his father made him ill. His eccentricities, Neverland, Peter Pan, sleepovers with children, were attempts to relive innocence, but these actions brought suspicion and damaging controversies. His appearance also reflected his struggles. Though diagnosed with vitiligo, his surgeries and changing looks became tabloid obsessions. Cruel rumors said he wanted to be white. In 1993, in a famous interview with Oprah, he defended himself. "I am a black American." Ironically, while his skin grew lighter, his music tackled racial issues with songs like Black or White and They Don't Care About Us. The cycle of trauma left him fractured. Though he never became the abuser his father was, his closeness with children raised troubling questions. Experts note that childhood trauma can blur boundaries and drive reenactment of pain. Whether Michael was victim, perpetrator, or both remains debated. But the allegations consumed his later life, leaving him emotionally broken and financially drained. His final years echoed his childhood. Once forced by Joe, he was now pushed by promoters for the This Is It concerts, despite poor health. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died at age 50 from propofol intoxication.